Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there is always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Two years ago, I stood in a small township in South Africa, KwaZulu-Natal. It was a room full of 100 children who were orphans and had lost their parents to HIV/AIDS, had lived in the poorest conditions ever, and here I was, a Zimbabwean who lived in Australia, coming to inspire them. I didn't know what to say to these children. I didn't know how I could connect or relate to them. And we didn't speak the same language. I don't speak Zulu, I speak Shona. And I sang that, and they listened, and it was beautiful. By the end of the day, after all the sessions and performances, we were all dancing together, a room full of these little people dancing, and we didn't need to speak the same thing, we just felt the same thing. And that day, I left feeling so much hope, inspired by those children. So today we're here at this Trauma-Informed Practice Symposium. We're going to be talking about some pretty real things. And hopefully by the end of it, I don't know if we'll be dancing, but hopefully we all leave with a bit of hope. Now, we were going to have Auntie Liz Hayden perform Welcome to Country. She is running a bit late at the moment, so once she arrives, we will invite her onto the stage to do so. But I'm here to formally welcome you to this event that is meant to be about looking at the ways that we talk to young people and how we help them through challenging times, but also how we as people who are those portals of hope and inspiration, how we can continue to share that and teach each other and learn from each other. So what I'm going to do now is just go through a bit of the housekeeping so that at least that's all set and done. And then once Auntie Liz gets here, we will invite her to stage, but we will also just continue with the program so that we keep to the time frame that we have. So just letting you know as well, we do have a hashtag for today, for those of you who are social media savvy. I like how quiet the room went when I said that. Hashtags. Okay, so we do have a hashtag. It's hashtag Tips2018. So if you are on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, take photos with your peers. Make sure that your department will be happy with them and tag them as you see fit. We also have some young people from the Create Foundation who will be supporting this symposium as roving reporters. Are they here, the young people? They're not here yet, but they will arrive. And so what they're going to be doing is interviewing different people. And so if they approach you and say, would you like to share a few of your thoughts, where you're from, what your work is, please, please, please engage with these young people because they are watching you. And we're here to obviously work with them as well. Another thing that I do need to stress is, again, we are talking about things that are quite sensitive sometimes, but what we've done is, with all the speakers and everybody who's presenting, we've tried to make sure that we're sensitive to everyone in the room. But if you do find that the topics that are being discussed or anything that is said is making you feel a bit uncomfortable and you're not sure, you're welcome to go and grab a coffee or some sunshine. We also do have some professionals here who would be happy to talk to you, but also you are the professionals. And then also we do have questions. So if you are sitting in the session or you've got a speaker that's really piqued your interest and you'd like to ask a question, you can actually send your questions to questions@sanctumservices.com. So I'll repeat that again. It's questions@sanctumservices.com. And during the afternoon forum session, we'll be able to answer some of those as well. And then housekeeping, so if you exit out of the door that you came through and you go to the right, and the restrooms will be on your right again. We also have refreshment areas in the foyer, and also if there is anything not so lovely like a fire or a flood, the main entrance is just there to your left as well. And now to thank the people who have made this morning possible, we'd like to thank the Department of Communities. They have generously funded this event and provided considerable staff time to prepare for it. We'd also like to thank Circle Seminars, the Youth Affairs Council of WA, Swan Alliance, Nagala, Alambi Care, Sanctum Specialist Services, Mission Australia, Anglicare, Insane, and the Australian Association of Social Workers. And now we're going to introduce our first speaker. Jackie Tang is the Assistant Director General of the Department of Communities. She's an experienced leader across both the public and private sectors. Jackie has been a very strong supporter of this event, so please join me in welcoming her to the stage to provide our opening address.
Thank you, Taku, and for the people who know me, they're now in dreaded fear that I'm going to sing my speech, but whilst I'm a bit of a karaoke queen, I can't beat that, so Auntie Liz Hazen is on her way, and certainly not to replace her welcome, but may I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land on which we are gathering today, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and extend my deep respect to elders both past and present, and to emerging leaders. May I also specifically acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who will be involved in the discussion today. And what a wonderful crowd. Thank you for coming. It's certainly quite exciting to see so many people who are here to listen to the speakers. My childhood was overwhelmingly positive. I was raised within an environment where I knew that my grandparents, my parents, my siblings loved me. I was provided a safe and nurturing home. I was encouraged to learn and grasp opportunities. I was supported when I faltered. I knew only one family home, and I'm still connected to that home today. Most importantly, I felt I belonged. Contrast this with the experience of the children and young people who we work with on a daily basis. The experience of not knowing where their next meal may come from, let alone where they will sleep safely tonight. Frequent, if not daily, exposure to violence and substance abuse. Incidents of sexual abuse, multiple placements and homelessness, mental and other health chronic issues, and the high likelihood of separation from one's parents, one's siblings, and one's community, coupled with a parallel and unrelenting experience of loss, grief, and fear. Children and young people exposed to these negative experiences are traumatised. It is widely acknowledged that childhood trauma is the most significant contributor to mental, physical, social, and emotional health problems. Trauma negatively impacts the brain and healthy growth and development. Complex trauma manifests in a myriad of problems that affect behaviour in difficult and challenging ways, thereby only perpetuating social disconnection, ensuring that the road to recover is not only longer, if it occurs at all, but significantly more rugged. Trauma-informed practice is innovative and relatively recent. It requires constant creativity and non-punitive interventions that promote well-being and produce pro-social behaviour. Importantly, a trauma-informed approach encourages a different means of engagement through asking, what has happened to you, rather than what is wrong with you. Very explicitly, a trauma-informed approach should never be about excuses, minimising behaviour, or a lack of accountability. It is a process of genuine connection, to understand and to seek to support children and young people to model and learn different approaches to life's challenges. This is in contrast to the reactive, well-practiced negative survival mechanisms that may spark an immediate reaction but provide no solid pathway to positive outcomes for the long term. The behaviours of children and young people result from what they have learned to do to survive the individual trauma that they have suffered. At the same time, it is the child or young person's behaviour that is judged and ultimately influences their interactions and behaviours with a variety of people that they come in contact with, including staff. The more often their negative behaviour is played out publicly, the more likely the trajectory through the criminal justice system, with the inevitable personal and social costs that will follow. These negative survival mechanisms, if unchallenged, will only further entrench the very reactions that will lead to further isolation and disconnection. Across the general community, there is a variance in the level of knowledge and understanding of trauma-informed practice. We need more opportunities to upskill people who work with vulnerable children and young people to develop the appropriate responses to address the cyclical, complex trauma they have experienced. Today is one opportunity to do this. There is a critical need for organisations to implement evidence-based trauma work with clients, as well as ensuring trauma-informed management systems, policies, values and culture to enable creative, committed and stable frontline staff. Individual workers cannot singularly bring about this change. They need to be skilled, nurtured and professionally guided through the trauma that they are exposed to each day in their work, whether they are on the front counter or working intensively with families. To be effective, it needs to be embedded at every level of the organisation's culture. This trauma-informed practice symposium is an opportunity to capitalise on a period of great change across the community and government sector to influence a sector-wide shift to build and strengthen a culture of understanding, skill and ability to respond appropriately to child and youth trauma. Through the findings of the Royal Commission and the ever-increasing stress in our community, there is an urgent need for all of us to respond to the physical, psychological and emotional needs of children and youth who have experienced trauma. It is also acknowledged that many adults in our community remain traumatised as a direct result of negative childhood experiences. Research indicates that adopting a trauma-informed approach to service delivery not only supports healing and empowers children and young people, but it also provides a satisfying and positive workplace for staff. Being trauma-informed is no easy task, and it can be on a day-to-day, sometimes a minute-by-minute challenge. How do you build resilience, skills and the confidence of staff to approach situations from a strength-based approach, recognising that beyond the immediate, challenging and confronting behaviour is a young human being who is trying to strive and understand their world, which more often than not has left them feeling abandoned, frightened and hurt in their most vulnerable and formative years. Being a trauma-informed organisation is not primarily challenging the behaviours of children and young people, but rather about changing the views and attitude of the staff about the presenting behaviour and therefore the nature of the response. Acknowledging that every interaction matters. How do we as leaders utilise the research in this area to provide a systemic response that supports children and young people who have experienced trauma and at the same time support staff who are attempting to deal with the manifestations of this trauma? In other words, how do we transform the enormous amount of research into frontline practice for staff and embed this in our organisations? Although the focus is frequently on the traumatised children and young people, it is indeed the staff that need to be supported, educated and trauma-informed so that they can effect the change with and for the children and young people with whom they work. Being a trauma-informed organisation is primarily about managing staff in a trauma-informed context. That is, recognising that dealing with young traumatised people is challenging, in fact, at times downright difficult. Staff trying to manage their own feelings and responses to the negative behaviours of children and young people, particularly where they've had a long-term working relationship, can be a further and significant challenge, often reflected through staff burnout, high levels of absenteeism, and increased workers' compensation claims. Within child protection and family support, we use the sanctuary model of the Bloom and Associates that considers systems by which staff are better able to work within a challenging environment. The aim is to empower the organisation with the skills to understand the traumatised child or young person as being a consequence of their life experiences. To understand the child's behaviour is not something they produce to just annoy staff or attack the world, but rather what they have learned as a survival mechanism for what they have suffered and will continue to suffer into their adulthood if not addressed. Today's presenters will provide the evidence that trauma-informed behaviour management strategies respond to children and young persons' needs and are effective in promoting optimal pro-social behaviour and well-being in children and young people. They will also demonstrate how trauma-informed knowledge can be transferred into effective practice if grounded in a number of simple principles. The purpose of today is to ignite and inspire a collective attitude by you, the leaders across our community who have committed to the care and well-being of our community's most precious members, our children and young people, the leaders of tomorrow. In conclusion, I'd like to thank the committee who have made today possible. Such events take such considerable effort, which often goes unnoticed. So thank you. I would also like to thank each of you for your personal commitment and for your decision to join the discussion today. Thank you.